Trigger warning. The following content may discuss sensitive topics such as mental health, abuse, violence. Please proceed with caution and take care of yourself. If you feel uncomfortable, it's okay to step away.
I'm going to go there.
You've got this.
It's not, because I've lost my other phone with all my notes on it. My one that I use for other things. Lost that, so had to rush around for the last half hour doing it all again. So whether it's good enough or not, we won't know.
You'll be all right. Nothing can replace fact and what you know.
Yeah. Where's my charger? Let's give it a few minutes.
Deep breaths. Make sure you've got your drinks and everything that you need.
Oh, I've definitely got my Red Bull.
And anybody that needs to take any meds, do it now.
What you been doing?
What have I been doing?
All of you.
Not a lot, love. Just waiting.
I was just going to say, yeah, bugger all. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your day? It's too late for me, Matt. It's too late. I needed them when the tree pollen was kicking off.
You're welcome, Roxy. It obviously won't work on tree pollen.
No.
It's only for snow pollen.
Hey,
so we don't have snow yet.
Just to warn you, the Observer is going to record this.
It's fine.
So don't say anything.
Have you already started? Do you need me to talk about strawberries again?
Hello. Hello. I don't think it's going to get very busy because I left it for last minute.
That's all right.
And I didn't really give the bigger creators that were going to come in the box last time, I didn't really give them any warning. But I'm cool with that, you know?
Yeah.
I've added it to my story.
I'm already looking, thinking, shit, there's 30 people in here, what have I done?
Don't look.
Yeah.
Ignore it. You'll be all right.
Yeah, don't look at the numbers, honey.
Right, I might as well just start because I don't really care if people miss it, to be honest. Just want to get it done now.
Well, if Observer's got it, if anybody needs to catch up, then they can, can't they?
Yeah. The other thing I will say quickly is when I get anxious, I shake. So if the phone's doing this, I'm not having a seizure. It's my anxiety. Right, I'm going to do the shit bit first, which is my personal story. So when I was 4 to 7 years old, I was SA'd by my mum's dad. Obviously at the time didn't know it was wrong. Obviously it felt wrong, but didn't know it was wrong, didn't know I was told that it had to stay a secret because otherwise people would be upset with me. And I was also told, so my granddad, I hate calling him my granddad, but I won't say the place where he comes from. That's what we call him, is the name of the town that he lives. He paid for us to have horses for basically our whole childhood, and that was a sort of blackmail as such. So I was told I wouldn't be able to have my horse. Yeah. At the age of 9, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which for the first year, it just was what it was. Didn't think nothing of it, looked after myself. And it was about this time, I'd say about 10 years old, 10 years old, that I started to realise that something really wrong had happened to me as a child. Obviously, you start learning about stuff like that in school. I realised, not the full extent, but I realised that it was really wrong. And it started to affect me. With that, I still didn't want to tell anyone, but I did tell my 2 best friends, who are still to this day my 2 best friends. And I'll go into that a bit later, but they're my favourite people in the whole wide world. Growing up from there, so basically what happened to me as a child, I saw that as something I couldn't control. But something I could control was my diabetes. So I didn't take any of my medication. I was constantly in hospital with ketoacidosis, constantly sick, made myself very poorly to the point that at one point they told me if it carried on I'd have 3 years to live. Tops, because my body was shutting down. They were getting me taxis from hospital to school because my attendance was at something stupid like 27% one year. So I'd get a taxi to school and then a taxi back to the hospital afterwards. Anyway, that was from about the age of 10 till probably until I had my daughter, who is 9 years old. So at 18 years old, I still hadn't told anyone else. And I met a bloke, and I call him that lightly, who I thought was my world. Our relationship was toxic as hell. He was on a lot of drugs. But I loved him, or I thought I loved him. I really did think I loved him. We had a row one night, and this row was different. It got nasty. And he was actually friends with my older sister's friends. They were in the same friendship group. And I trusted this man to tell him because of a trigger that happened one night. Because he was friends with my sister's friendship group, he decided that it was appropriate that night to tell me that he was going to tell my sister's friends and my sister about what happened to me as a child. He gave me a black eye and he called me dirty. So obviously I decided enough was enough. I packed my stuff. I was living with him at this point. I packed my stuff and I left the house. I didn't have anywhere to go. I sat on the bench down the road and I called my sister, my bigger sister this was. And I sat there and I said, right, I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to be happy. I don't want questions asked. I just need to tell you before you hear from other people. I said, this happened to me as a child. I was SA'd as a child. And she said, who was it, Micky? And I said, I'm not telling you. And she said, Micky, who was it? I said, I'm not telling you. And she said, was it Grandad? And I said, how do you know that? And she said, because he did it to me too. Now, my sister lived quite a long way away at the time. She was working. She'd moved away because of another reason. We had a really nasty father in our household. So she travelled down that night and picked me up. We stayed in a hotel for the night. We didn't sleep, and we sat there and we spoke and we spoke and we spoke, and we decided that we needed to go tell our mum. And that was purely because we had a younger sister in the house as well. We did this, and I never thought that I would get the reaction that I got from my mum. She believed us instantly. And it was like she knew, but she didn't know. But as soon as we'd said it, she knew. She trusted us, and she said, I don't know how we're going to tell your dad. And it was one of them things. My dad was not a nice man. He was an alcoholic. Not that that's a problem, but he was nasty when he was drunk. So he got home from work and we told him. And my dad just sat there. He didn't say anything. He sat in silence. Obviously, he gave us all a cuddle. And he disappeared. He got back the next day and he actually said that he had gone to sit outside my granddad's house. Now, bearing in mind, this wasn't his dad, this was my mum's dad. And we were all sat there thinking, oh my God, what have you done? And he said, I phoned him and I asked him to come outside. He sat in the car. He said, my dad said, I couldn't even look at him. He looked straight out the window. And he said, did you do it? No, he didn't get a yes or no answer, but what he did get was, do not call the police. I will carry on paying for the horses and have nothing to do with you. Now, to me, if I was accused of something like that, you know, the first thing you'd say is, what the fuck's going on? Do you know what I mean? I didn't do that. In fact, I'd be fuming because I'd know that I hadn't done that. We then took a while to ourselves to decide what to do next. My little sister also said that it didn't happen to her. It hadn't happened to her. Now, my little sister is 6 years younger than me, and my older sister is 2 years older, so whether it was the age difference, something spooked him with her, I don't know. So we sat as a family and we decided that it needed to go to the police. Now, obviously, a historical case is very, very hard to get anywhere. It's very hard. I had to do a video statement, so did my sister. And this is one of the 2 times that I have ever actually said what happened. I can't talk on what happened. I can say it happened. I can't say what happened, if that makes sense.
Don't say it then. You're all right. Just take your time.
So yeah, I did the video statement, and it was my dad that actually took me. And at this point, my dad couldn't have been any more supportive. He was still drinking, but he was a supportive father. After we'd done this, we heard that he had been arrested. And at this point, there were 3 other victims come forward. And they were all family members, other than one. And I say other than one, this one was never confirmed. So altogether, there was 5, but one was never confirmed. As in, they didn't want to take it further. They didn't want to go police. So we never know. Obviously, I believe all victims. I hate that word. We're warriors. We ain't victims either. I'm sorry. The shit thing is that it was getting close to the court date and he went not guilty at his plea hearing. Of course he did. And we were told that out of all the out of the 4 victims that were able to stand trial, in actual fact, I was the only one who was fit enough to stand trial. My sister had a mental breakdown. One of them had Down syndrome and didn't have the capacity Another one I won't go into because it's very personal what had happened to her at this point. But out of the 5 people that he had done it, or that we know of that he had done this to, I was the only one that was going to be able to stand trial. And obviously that took a toll. So again, I was in and out of hospital. I actually got out of hospital the day before I had to go to court. It was taken to Crown Court. It was a 2-week case. And I said to them that I didn't want to stand in the same courtroom as him to give my evidence. Obviously, once again, I would have to go into details about what happened. So I did a video link to the courtroom, but it was in the same court, if that makes sense. I was just upstairs. And I told my family that I did not want none of them in there. I did not want anyone who supported me in there at this point. And they respected my wishes because I didn't want anyone knowing what had happened to me still. My 2 friends who I told as a child also stood and gave evidence for me. And I could never thank them enough for that. He got not guilty. But the fact that it had gone to Crown Court for a historical trial with that much time in the middle and whatever, it's a really hard conviction to get. It's a hard conviction when it's not historical, let alone being historical. He got not guilty. As he walked out of the court that day, he smirked at me. And I've never lunged at someone so quickly, screaming at the top of my lungs. My mum had to pull me back while screaming at him at the same time. And I'm laughing about it because to me, he deserved that. He was acting like a little frail old man with a walking stick. He walked out without his walking stick. So yeah, that was that. Now, that was when I was 18 years old. At 20 years old, I actually met my now ex-partner, Keaton. And I was not looking after my diabetes. I was still not okay. Up here and physically, I was not okay. I don't like to call them symptoms, but I suppose after effects of what happened to me as a child, I still have to this day. And I don't think they'll ever go away, if that makes sense. But my health was bad. I had my daughter. I've had 11 miscarriages, and I was told I would never have children, and I actually managed to have my baby girl. I nearly passed away when I was pregnant with her, but I was determined that I was going to have her, whether that happened or not. During pregnancy, I swelled up like Michelin Man. I had like rolls in my ankle, my skin was splitting, and I was told that my kidneys weren't working properly. But it seemed that after having my daughter, everything just went back to normal. It was never followed up on either. When my daughter was 3 years old, I went for a regular blood test, and I got a phone call the next day, telling me that I was actually in stage 3 of kidney disease. So stage 3, it isn't really anything serious. They told me what the symptoms are, and I said, well, I've always felt like that. Nothing feels any different to what you've just explained. Like, even as a child, how I made my health, so how poorly I made myself, it's always been that way. That's how I felt. And they said, it's okay, like, you could live forever in stage 3, rah-de-rah-de-rah. Was put on a few minor meds. Less than a year later, I had another blood test, and I was told that it was the quickest decline that they had ever seen, and I was actually in kidney failure. Now, obviously, having a young baby, that's really scary. They told me that I would have to start dialysis, and that was sort of left there for... So I was at 15% kidney function at this point, and the dialysis idea was left there for a little while. I'd say about 6 months later, I was having regular blood tests at this point. About 6 months later, I went for another one, and they called me up and they said, we need to start now. Your kidney function is at 5%. And obviously at this point I was swelling up again. I was really poorly. So in January of 2020, I had a big tube fitted in my tummy, and I did dialysis overnight, every night, for the remaining, that's what I thought it was going to be. And they said to me at this point, what do you want to do? They said, you can either stay on dialysis, you can have a kidney transplant, or we can look into a kidney and pancreas transplant. And I said, obviously it was a lot to think about. But after being on dialysis for about a week, I knew that I couldn't do that. I couldn't do dialysis. And for anyone that has been on dialysis or knows of people on dialysis, I thought I was unaliving. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't look after my daughter. My daughter's school is literally 2 minutes up the road. I couldn't walk her to school. And I felt like I was failing as a mum. So I said to them that I wanted the kidney and pancreas transplant, because the way they explained it as well at this point was that I would be able to have more children one day, obviously. And to me, that's all I've ever wanted. Like, I've wanted a football team. So yeah, I was signed up to the transplant list. I was on dialysis for 3 months, and I was coming home from somewhere with my ex, and I got a phone call saying, you need to get to Addenbrooke's. And I went, why, what's the matter? And they said, we've got your organs, you need to get to Addenbrooke's. And I said, well, I've got my daughter, what do I do? And they said, you need to drop your daughter off somewhere and get to Addenbrooke's. So I did. I dropped her at my mum's house, who was my main support, as well as my partner at the time. And I went and I sat there, I got in my gown, I got my sexy stockings on, and I waited. I was there till, I think it was late at night. And the surgeons came in and I'm like, right, come on, let's go. And he said, I'm so sorry, there's something malignant about the organs. We can't transplant them. So, yeah, stomach dropped out backside. And I had to go home again. I started dialysis in January of 2021. I think, yeah, it was 2021. On the 3rd of July, 2021, so 7 months later, I got the second phone call. And at this point, I was very much like, oh, it's not going to be the one again. I'm just going to go, we'll wait around. I got to the hospital, I got my gown on, and the next thing you know, they're taking me down to surgery. The next thing I know, and it's very confusing at this point. There's a 2-week period where I'd had the transplant, it was successful. I hadn't had to have had an insulin dose since they put the pancreas in. So instantly it was working. My kidney function was coming up really, really quickly. But I don't really remember anything other than being so poorly. I was on a lot of opioids. The first week I was on the high dependency ward, and the second week they'd moved me into the general transplant ward. And I remember laying in bed and thinking, how are all these people up and out of bed? Like, how are they doing that? But I'm sat here pressing my button to give myself painkillers over and over and over again. And the surgeon came round and he said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not." I said, I don't feel like I feel like I'm unaliving quite quickly. And he said, "You will." He said, kidney and pancreas transplant is one of the hardest recoveries. He said, if it was just kidney, probably the quickest, but both together is really, really hard. He said, but when you're better, you'll know about it. I was like, right, okay. Then I started having some really evil dreams, to the point that I was being raped. And once again, the surgeon come round and I said, "You need to get these organs out of me." I said, "They're evil." I said, "I don't know who you've got them from, but I want them gone." And he said, "Micky, that's not the organs. That's the meds that are making you feel this way." I was on a lot. Now, during this 2-week period of being in Addenbrooke's, I didn't talk to my partner at the time, and I also did not talk to my daughter. And I think in my head it's because I was so depressed. I already felt like I was failing as a mum.
Take your time. Have a drink.
We've got you. Proud of you.
You're doing so well.
Yeah, I already felt like I was failing as a mum. So for me to talk to my daughter and for her to hear me in pain just wasn't something that I was willing to do. I remember that my mum actually came in to see me, but this was mid-COVID, and I couldn't actually, so she couldn't come round to my ward. I was on a ward of 6 people. She couldn't come in. So I had to physically go and sit in a room in a wheelchair. She came in, I sat in my wheelchair for 2 minutes and I said to her, "I'm in too much pain. I want to go back to bed." I had 3 drains in my tummy, a lot of tubes. I had a tube in my bowel that was feeding me. I hadn't eaten for 2 weeks. I had a stent in my bladder. And I remember the toilet was literally opposite my bed. And I remember the walk there was excruciating. The doctors would come round and I wouldn't even open my eyes to talk to them. But yeah, the nurse came round one day and she said to me, "Micky, your partner's here." And I looked at her and I said, "You what?" And she said, "Your partner's here." And I said, "I don't want to see him." And she said, "You need to get out of bed now." I said, "I don't want to see him." And she said, "I'm going to get you a wheelchair and we're going to see him." So although I felt like I had no choice in this matter, I also know now that she did the right thing. And it was just my partner of the time. My daughter wasn't there. And I see him and I just cried and I said, "I'm sorry." And obviously he tried to make a joke of it, and he's like, what are you sorry for? And I was, I'm sorry for not talking to anyone for 2 weeks. I'm sorry that I'm actually that sad and in myself that I don't want to talk to people. Anyway, I sat there with him for 8 minutes that day, which felt like a miracle. As I went to leave, I said to him, I want to see Tilly. And he looked at me and he said, are you sure? And I was like, I want to see my daughter. And something in my brain at that point just clicked, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, you need to snap out of it now. That was a Saturday, so the next day was a Sunday, and I get a phone call saying, your partner and Tilly are here to see you. And they said, what do you want to do? Do you want to go sit in the room? And I said, no, get me a wheelchair. I said, I'm going out, going out around the hospital. Now, for anyone that knows Addenbrooke's, it's a massive hospital. It's got loads of shops. So we went downstairs. Now, my ward, it was called G5, and the 5 means it was on level 5. We went down in the lift. We just sat in the reception. It was a Sunday, so nothing was open. And we just sat there for about 20 minutes. And it got to a point where I said to him, I think I'm going to have to go upstairs. And that was fine. They started to take me back up. And as we sat in reception, an elderly man, actually collapsed. And I looked at my partner and I said, you need to give him my wheelchair. And he looked at me as if to go, are you mad? And he's like, how are you going to get back upstairs? 5 flights, be it lifts or stairs at that point. And I said, I'll do it. I said, give him my wheelchair. And he weren't happy about it. And I said, you either give him my wheelchair or I'm getting out the wheelchair and I'm walking up myself. So he did. I managed that day to get back up to my ward without sitting in a wheelchair. No, it hurt, but I don't think I was thinking about the pain at the time. I think the fight to get upstairs was what was pushing me the most to do it. And I truly believe that seeing my daughter that day had clicked my brain back into action. As I walked back in the ward, I remember seeing my surgeon at the reception, and he looked at me and he went, oh my God, he went, are you okay? And I went, yeah, I'm all right. And he went, can I do anything? Do you want anything? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm going home tomorrow. And he went, oh, are you? And I went, yeah. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, if you can eat something, you can go home. So, of course, me still throwing up multiple times a day, sat there, forced myself to eat a little pot of ice cream, which actually made me feel a bit better. The next day I went home. And I'm really, really proud of that. And I truly believe that I've got my daughter to thank for that. Now, obviously, after any transplant, let alone a double transplant, the recovery is shocking. It's never, ever plain sailing. I went home with meds that actually made me a lot worse, and they have to find the right meds, so it's all a bit of a process. But I went back in a few weeks later. I still had the tube. They left the tube in my bowel for 6 months, just in case that something went wrong. But I remember they were taking the staples out. And I sat there and I said to them, what can you tell me about my donor? And they said, we can't tell you a lot, but what we can tell you is he was 27 years old. So I knew that he was male, I knew that he was 27. And to me, finding out that my donor was actually younger than me, that was really hard as well mentally, because how is it that someone had to lose a life to save mine? And I said to them, I'd like to write to his family. Now, everything after a transplant is kept completely confidential. That is literally all they can tell me. And I did that. I wrote to his wife. I didn't know it was his wife at the time. I just wrote to his family. So quite a general letter. I explained in my letter about what had happened, not in detail like I've just told you, but I explained my illnesses and how it got to that point with my diabetes, how at that, like before my transplant, I couldn't brush my hair, I couldn't brush my teeth. Lifting my arms up was incredibly hard. I couldn't walk my daughter to school. And I wrote to them a few weeks later. I'd say it was about a month after my transplant, and I was telling them that I'd actually walked my daughter to school and I was going out, and although I was still using crutches, I was going out and I was doing things and I was living my life again. I also thanked them for being so selfless and giving me the gift of life. When I got the letter back from his wife, it was near Christmas time, and she apologised for taking so long due to losing her husband. Now, let's bear in mind these were a very young couple. They'd been together since they were both 14 years old. My donor's name was Aaron, and he'd actually passed away 8 weeks before his third child was born. But his biggest legacy in life was to help people. And I found out that Aaron also helped 7 other people, one of them being a child, by donating his organs. Me and his wife still talk today. We do plan to meet, but obviously it's now years later, but it's still quite hard. So yeah, that's my personal side of it anyway. So you can turn your mics off now, please. Don't leave me in silence anymore.
You did really well.
You did good.
You should be very proud of yourself. Very proud.
Definitely.
We're proud of you.
Right, so on to the important bit.
Go for it.
The reason why, and obviously I put the live as the importance of sharing your wishes. Now, I've taken clips from, mainly from a page. It's called Share Your Wishes. It is on Google, but it's mainly on Facebook and Instagram. And they're a group of people who basically share people's stories, either of people like me who have been through transplants, or people who are of connection with someone who has lost their life or anything like that. They're all volunteers, and they say, why do you need to talk to your loved ones? Can I just say as well, my personal opinion is that whether you want to donate or whether you don't, there's no right or wrong answer. It's very, very personal. For instance, before my transplant, if anything could happen to my daughter, and I hate to think of it like this, but she would have gone whole. There's no way I would have let anyone take bits of her. But now knowing what one person can do, and knowing that transplants aren't offered until there's nothing else they can do, I'd allow her to do that. But I'm still very much, although I'm pro organ donation, I'm very much, it's a personal choice and nobody should be targeted for whether they want to or whether they don't. And let's not forget there's religion, etc., that can come into it. So it says, why talk to your loved ones? Now, the main reason is that your family can override your decision if they don't know what you want. So at this moment in time, everyone, unless you have opted out, is signed up to the transplant list. You can opt out. Hello, Ellie, darling. I just noticed you in here. You can opt out. Ellie, I don't know if you want to get in the box. If you want to, you're more than welcome to. And I hope you don't mind me saying this. Ellie is a friend's daughter who has also been through a massive transplant. Massive. So they can override your decision if they don't know what you want. Now, even if... So everyone signed up to the list, unless you take yourself off. But if I hadn't told my next of kin that I want to donate my organs, my next of kin can sit there and say there's no way. And they will always take your family's wishes into consideration. Sorry, give me a second, I've lost my page. Each year, hundreds of opportunities for transplants are missed because families aren't sure what to do. Now, imagine being that next of kin, and imagine, let's say your partner or your child or your mother hadn't told you what they wanted to happen to their body. You have to make that choice. Your family will always be consulted about whether you wanted to be an organ donator or not. The clinicians will never proceed with organ donation if your family or loved ones object. This is why I really shout about sharing your wishes. Oh my God, sharing your wishes. By becoming an organ donor, you could potentially save the lives of up to 9 people and enhance many more. Now, as I say, Aaron, my donor, saved 7, and one of them was a child. Organ donation is a selfless act where the individual's organs or tissues are given to someone in need of a transplant, either after they pass or in some cases while they are living. Many lives are saved or improved through organ donation each year, and there is a significant need for more donors to meet the demand. And that is a massive understatement. There's 3 people pass away in the UK every day waiting for a transplant. Right now, in the UK, there are 8,003 people on the transplant list waiting for a life-saving operation. And since April, so what's that, 3 months ago, 2025, 1,220 people have received their gift of life. Among ethnic minorities in the UK, it's significantly lower that transplants are happening or people are signing up to be organ donators. It's leading to longer waiting times for transplants for patients from these communities. While there is a recent increase in the ethnic minority individuals registering to donate, the consent rates from families of deceased donors remains lower, and this contributes to the critical shortage of organs for transplants, especially with kidneys, as matches are often best found with the same ethnic background. In England, the decision about organ donation after passing is primarily based on the individual's prior decision. But families' involvement is the key factor. If an individual has registered their decision to donate on the organ donator register, that decision can be honoured. If it's not known, it will be down to the family. I would like to point out as well, I've seen a lot of false statements going around the app at the minute. All right, at least wait. About how people are still alive, and I'm sorry, I'm calling bullshit. The opportunity for transplants to be spoken about is never spoken about until there's nothing else they can do. And there is criteria that they have to meet to even talk about a transplant. It also says on this page about who can donate. Now, a lot of people think if you can't give blood, you can't be a donor. It's not true. It's not true. So it doesn't matter what age, you can be an organ donor. Medical conditions, it said, while certain medical conditions may affect eligibility, many people with illnesses or conditions will still donate organs or tissue. And live-in donations. So you can offer to donate a kidney while you're alive. Obviously, it has to be a match. It's a long process, and it's also a lot for the donor. Let's not forget, you will also be on meds for the rest of your life. It's not just, here, have a present, and that's it. And then it says what can be donated. So organ-wise, you've got kidney, heart, liver, lungs, pancreas, intestines. But you can also donate tissues. So corneas, heart valves, skin and bones. And that's all I've got. That's all you're getting from me tonight.
You did amazing. Well done.
Yeah. It's just, it really shocks me how many people are waiting and how many people pass, and 3 people pass every day waiting for organ donations. And the fact that I saw the other day that some mum was sat on the app saying that people are still alive and all these conspiracy theories, and it's quite a well-known person on the app, and it is someone that I do like. And I did have a discussion with said person. Sorry, I'm calling bullshit.
Well, I've had the discussion with my family and told them if they can use it, they can have it. If it's not busted, old, shriveled up, take it.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's not going to do me any good. So, yeah. So my family know my wishes. And I think if you don't feel you can have that conversation with your family, let them know, leave them a letter, something, record a video. Just, if you don't think you can have that conversation, just make your wishes known somehow. Yeah?
I will also say that, and I'm sure people in the chat who have had a transplant will agree with me, it's not an instant fix. And transplants are not also a cure. So transplants don't last forever. And I say it saved my life because it did. But it's quite often that... So the average for a kidney is around 10 years that a transplant will last. The longest at the moment, I believe, is around 46 years. Pancreas lasts a lot less, like a shorter amount of time. So I will possibly be back on insulin. I didn't mention that my daughter is also type 1 diabetic, and she will never ever go through anything that I went through. She will always be looked after. And in fact, you guys know, I won't even leave her with anyone because I want her to be looked after. And if she's at school and something happens, it sets my CPTSD off. She will not ever go through what I went through. But yeah, it's not a life fix like people think it is. It's heavy. It's heavy, really heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not one and done, is it? Yeah, my daughter's type 1 as well. But she was diagnosed in 2015. Technology's moved on an awful lot since then, especially for you, since you as well.
I know it isn't about diabetes, but diabetes is a dangerous thing and people don't understand how lethal it can be. Like, I'm blind in one eye. I've got no feeling from my knees. I have got feeling. I wouldn't be able to walk if I didn't have feeling, but the pins and needles, like, it's numb.
Altered sensation, yeah. Yeah.
Nerve damage, I think it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the insulin that does the damage, as well as the sugar in the blood.
Mine was just not having the insulin. I didn't take it.
Yeah.
And hence why every other week I was in hospital, because my body was like, nah, I'm not doing it. I can't do that.
Well, I, for one, am glad you're here.
Oh, thanks.
I am too.
Yeah.
So I've been
Life
nice
would
to
not
me.
be
You're
so.
bullying me.
Well, we
Life,
thought we best.
well,
Don't
yeah,
make me cry
we do,
again, for
but,
God's sake.
you know. Oh,
Once a year's
stop
enough.
whinging, woman. Is that better?
Get on notice, Steph.
Thanks.
You've got a lot of people around you that are very, very pleased you are here. You do a lot of good as well, so you're doing your donor proud.
Yeah, I hope so. Do you know what? It's really messed up, but it sounds so messy saying this because I know in my head it doesn't make sense. But I put my hand, so I've got a scar from here down to the top of my trouser line. I've got the drain scars as well. I mean, the pictures are on my profile if you want to go searching for them. They're not pretty. But I put my hand on my belly and I talk to him sometimes.
No, that doesn't sound daft at all. Genuinely, that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah?
She does, Ben. Yes, she does.
The other thing I will say is, obviously, I say I talk to his wife on the regular. I probably talk to her 3 times a year. It's her that's more forward about meeting, but at the minute I do want to meet her and the kids. Of course I do. But after a transplant, you have to be so careful. Obviously, they could get over-attached or I could feel like I owe them something. And one of my main after effects of what happened to me as a child, along with the CPTSD, along with the SH, is guilt.
Yeah.
I suffer really bad with guilt. Whatever happens, it will always be my fault.
This is true. I could burn me toast, and I'm in Scotland. Micky's the other end of the country, and she'll blame herself.
Yeah.
She will.
If I'm talking for too long, of course I will. No, I'm like, once I start, I don't stop.
She's
yeah.
She's a burden like that, isn't she, Catherine?
Yeah, she knows.
She waffles. She's such a waffler.
You can't shut her up.
I know, honestly. Some days.
You've done amazing. You have done so well. You have. And if it just brings that little bit of awareness about donors, then, you know, you've done your job, haven't you? You've done amazing.
It's more the sharing your wishes side that I wanted to get across, because after seeing what I heard the other day and then people saying that everyone is automatically on the list now and you can't get off it, and I'm sat there thinking, like, none of that's true. It to me personally, the way I see it is, if my next of kin had to make that choice, I'd want them to know what I wanted to make their choice easier. And let's face it, that's not a choice that anyone wants to make. Anyone.
Yeah, I think if you can spare your family having to make that decision at one of the darkest moments, then you have a responsibility to do it for them as much as anyone else. Yeah.
That doesn't...
Can't shout that loud enough.
I want to say, and I may be incorrect here, but I believe if you're under 18 or you lack mental capacity, it's always up to the next of kin. I may be wrong there.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, go have a look at that Facebook page. My story is on there. Obviously, my story is quite heavily censored on there. But it is on there, along with someone that I used to work with, another Ellie who's in the chat, who her mum I used to work with. She's actually a good friend still. Along with my friend who lives up the road who's had a transplant. It's a lot more common than people think. A lot more.
My friend has it tattooed on him because his parents have a religion that don't allow it, so he has it tattooed on him.
And that's completely okay. This is what I mean.
And can I say for anyone in the chat as well, it's all right not to. You don't have to do this. This is not something you're obligated to do. If you don't want to do it, it doesn't feel right, don't do it. But for those of us that do want to do it, please let your next of kin know.
It is purely a personal choice.
100%.
Completely.
And everybody has different reasons for different things.
One thing I will say, and obviously I've already said that before my transplant, I would have sat there and said, there's no way my daughter's not going whole. Like, she would be buried as her. That's how I felt before my transplant. But now, and I say it now after having a double transplant, I truly believe if you're willing to accept a transplant, you should be willing to donate. And that's not what amazes me. Wrong, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but do you know what amazes me is how many lives one body can save.
Yeah.
9 plus.
That's incredible.
9 plus more with tissue if tissue's donated. Yeah. The other thing is you can also pick what you can or what you do and what you don't want to donate. So
yeah, there's somebody in the chat that says they don't want to donate the corneas. Everything else can be done.
It's like that £7. If you've ever watched £7, that's the reason why, because no one wants to look into someone else's eyes and see. My friend won't donate her heart because she said that is her. Like, her heart is her.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Hope. Hope's lost her mother.
Oh.
I'm so sorry, darling.
Oh, Hope. I feel like I know who
Inbox is open if you need.
I think I've been talking to Hope. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I talking to you on your other account? Yeah. Yeah, I've got Hope already.
Good.
Brave, brave lady. Or man.
Person.
You
will go with person. Safer person.
I actually don't know if they're male or female, but I'm presuming it's a female.